Tuesdays is known as $2 Tuesdays at WagerTalk.com and SportsMemo.com, where you can get the hottest handicappers, best bet, or daily package for only $2.
All right, guys, welcome in. Happy Tuesday as we get ready. I can't believe it. We're at week 7 of the college football season, and we've got you covered because we got a little Tuesday night football we're going to talk about, along with 3 other games, Thursday night, Friday night, 1 Saturday. And I can't think of 3 better gentlemen to break these games down with than these 3 right here. Just so happens they're there and they can actually hear me. Tony Mejia in the house up at the top. Bryan, Leonard, fresh off an Amazon delivery. Don't ask of what. And Dave Cokin in the house here. Gentlemen, happy Tuesday to you. And Tony Mejia, let me come to you, my friend. How was the weekend? I know you got a lot going on right now, world of sports. We still got NBA next week, but college football, NFL, baseball playoffs. What do you got going on at WagerTalk?
Well, today's been a huge soccer day, and I think I opened up 5-0 or so, but we still got European matches going on as we speak, and the United States in a huge qualifier in Columbus tonight against Costa Rica, getting through without having to sweat it to the World Cup. Will hinge plenty on whether they get that result or not, at least get a point. And then baseball, I've been on a great run in these playoffs. Got a 4% play tonight in Dodgers Giants, and got an opinion on the Brewers Braves coming up. Hit my 5% on the Cowboys in NFL on Sunday, but it was a mixed bag, and I think I had a profitable college football Saturday. But certainly, I want to have one of those lights out days, and they haven't come yet this season. So hopefully, it starts tonight because I have a 4% play on Appalachian State and Louisiana. We're going to talk about that. I don't mind sharing a lot of my intel, but the play I'll keep to myself, and you can purchase it at WagerTalk, wt.buzz/TM. Also have a free play for tonight in a league match in Columbia. So I've been busy all day.
That's good stuff. We're just a week away from midweek games coming up too. Bryan, Leonard, welcome in. Your weekend, my friend, how did it go? And what, if anything, did you walk away with in college football this week? Did we learn anything?
I didn't walk away with any money, I'll tell you that. And a lousy Saturday and Sunday. But I did a nice day yesterday. I went on the WagerTalk today, used the over in the NFL game. What a lock that was. All along you knew that game was flying over.
Okay.
It was an interesting game, an ugly game, but it did go over. And I did have a 3% play on the San Francisco Giants yesterday. So that was a nice plus 180 turnaround for us. So, hey, undefeated on the new week. And I don't even remember last week. I don't even remember what year it is anyway. So let's get some more winning for today. And hopefully we'll get you some victories here out of the games we're going to discuss.
I love it. All right. By the way, I think I heard your doorbell again. Dave Cokin, my friend, how are you? What do you got going on? I know NHL starts tonight, I believe, and I know you're excited about that. What else you got going on at WagerTalk?
Let's see. I've got 3 college games up right now. One of them is a free play on the Air Force Boise State game. So I did not do a video on that yet. I'll try and get one done tomorrow. But the play's up right now on my homepage at WagerTalk, wt.buzz/DC. Made some approach changes in college for this week. Hopefully they will work out. One of the games I put up, I think it's a 5% level play, but I didn't make it a 5% play because I don't do many of those, and the colleges just haven't been sharp enough for me to, in my opinion, warrant a 5% play. But I do think it's a very strong play. I did it, my 5% play in the NFL on the Titans on Sunday. So those remain perfect the last 2 seasons. NFL, they're 4-0. And overall 5% plays, this goes back 2 full years now to October of 2019, 28-9. So the real big plays, when they come, there's not a lot of them, obviously. When they come, they've been very strong. Have not decided whether I'll have one in the NFL yet because I haven't done all my NFL work yet. But I think the College Board looks pretty good this week, especially with some changes that I made in terms of my approach. We'll talk about those as we get into the games.
All right, love it. All right, well, we got 4 to go, and we got 1 tonight, guys. So let's dive into it here, Robert. What do we got? We got ourselves Appalachian State taking on Lafayette. Raging Cajuns here tonight. Opened up 3.5. I see 4.5 in a number of spots. The total 54.5. That's kind of been bet up to as well. So, Tony, I'll come to you first here. It's been an interesting season for both of these two teams, both 4-1 in here. But App State seems to be getting a little bit of love in the marketplace. What do you think?
Yeah, there was a ton of love on App State immediately. I guess Sharps really liked the fact that they opened as a road favorite. I certainly was surprised. I thought this was closer to a pick'em with Louisiana at home. Raging Cajuns haven't been a home underdog since 2018, which is when Billy Napier took over, and they won that game as a 3-point dog against Arkansas State. So we'll see if they respond in a similar manner here. And then there's been some buyback, because I saw 5 all morning, and then 4.5 is where it resides right now. Certainly, it's a game that Appalachian State has had circled. It was they lost to Louisiana in a tight one last season, and that was the first season that Sean Clark was at the helm. It snapped a run of 5 straight seasons without multiple Sun Belt losses for the Mountaineers. They ended up 6-2, and they put the cherry on top for Louisiana to finish 7-1 in league play, wrapped up their West Division title. And you can tell that App State has had this game circled because they rested their top wide receiver and their top running back, Cam Peoples, in their last win to start the month, just to make sure that they were ready for this one. I think the quote was, "We didn't want those guys in there at 80%. We could have them 100% in a couple of weeks." So yeah, they'll take their best shot at Louisiana, and it's ultimately going to come down to who makes plays in the fourth quarter between veteran quarterbacks Levi Lewis and Chase Bryce. Bryce is in his first season at App State after opening his career at Clemson and then being a disaster at Duke, but he's been much better this season. And then Lewis has been a mainstay for the Raging Cajuns for the past few seasons. Sometimes he's really good, other times he's spotty. It's going to come down to that fourth quarter. Louisiana at full strength. They'll have linebacker Farrard Gardner, who's one of their catalysts on that side of the ball, and their top tight end in play. So no real injury issues there. App State's top running back is going to play, like I mentioned, Peoples, but actually it's the second stringer that leads them in carries, Nate Noel. Him and Dyron Harrington, who also has been a mainstay over the past few years, listed as questionable. But so long as they got somebody running behind that big offensive line, App State should be able to move the football.
Brian, it's interesting. Lafayette 21-4 the last 2 seasons. They brought back 20 of 22 starters on this team. They lost to Texas, but I got to tell you, it doesn't feel like this is the same old with this team. What do you think?
No, it doesn't. You take a look at their yardage on the season. They've been outgained by 75 yards or more against everybody except for Ohio. And Ohio's the one team, actually Buffalo and Ohio, were the 2 teams I was looking to fade all season long in the MAC, and it's worked out pretty well there. So, yeah, Appalachian State, both teams are off a bye. Appalachian State's, I believe, 10-1 off of a bye. Different coaching staff, so I don't know what you can make out of it. But the loss last year to Lafayette broke an 8-game winning streak, I believe, for the Mountaineers. So, major revenge game here for Appalachian State. When you take a look at their stats, much more impressive than Lafayette. I wanted Appalachian State, but I didn't want to lay, was just pointed out by Tony, 4.5 or 5. But I will if I can get this back down to 4. It opened 3.5 and shot up to 4.5 in no time. So I'm on the edge with Appalachian State. Right now, it's not something I have bet, but if I can get it down to 4, I will play it. I just think this is a much better team. They've faced some good competition. The only game that they lost on the season was Miami, Florida, and that was a game they were leading pretty well going into late stages of that game. They lost the turnover battle in that game. They had 6 less first downs, and yet they were right in that game and had that game and blew it the following week. Coming off a bye week, both teams. Lafayette could, we'll talk about this when Clemson comes around, but they're a talented team. And a lot of times, once you have a team that goes on the bye that has talent, sometimes they turn it on after that bye week. So Lafayette could play their best game of the season here, but until I can see something more out of them, I won't be playing them here. Appalachian State at 4 or less, or there's better games to look at down the future. So I don't want to get involved unless it's something where my handicap and the line is where I need it to be. And right now it's not. So just an opinion on Appalachian State.
Dave, how do you have these two teams? Do you have them pretty much? Is it a coin flip in your opinion with these two, or do you give the edge one way or the other?
No, it's not a coin flip. Look, I mean, App State's 130 yards per game better than Louisiana, and they've played a slightly tougher schedule. So, I mean, at this point in the season, you have to start to put some weight into those numbers because, you know, if it's one or two games, that can be kind of fluky. Somebody had a bad game, somebody had a good game. But you're halfway through the season now, and you've got that much differential in yardage against similar schedules, or in this one, Mountaineers with a very slightly tougher schedule. You have to weigh that. The flip side of it is, on straight power ratings, it's still a pretty close game. I made it, I think, 2.5. App State favored, but still very close. The problem for ULL is they just haven't lived up to billing. This team is right now a flop. Now, you can disagree if you want. I think I disagreed with the fact that they were rated in the top 25 coming into the season. I thought no, okay? They're a good team, but they're not that good. But I had them top 50. They're not top 50 right now. They just have not played well. In a sense, you can look back to that Texas game and maybe they put so much into that because it was a huge game for the Cajuns. I mean, a really huge game, national TV, big coverage, a lot of publicity, and they didn't get killed in the game, but they lost. And they just don't seem to have ever recovered. Maybe having the Tuesday night spotlight to themselves, maybe that does something for them. I think the number's a little too high for me to play, but there's no buy signs for me on the Cajuns, so I guess it would have to be App State or nothing, and in this case, for me, it'll be nothing.
All right, there you go. Tonight, guys, we got some early week football, and we also have a game on Thursday night, which should also prove to be pretty interesting. What do we got here, Robert? Navy taking on Memphis here. A couple of teams that could absolutely use a win. Memphis opens up as an 8.5-point favorite. The total opened right around that 52.5 mark. And don't even get me started about that Tulsa game on Saturday there, Bryan. Like I want to throw up as I'm watching them march up and down the field and not be able to convert or do anything at that point from Memphis. But the truth is they looked pretty good the first three games of the season. The last three, they've lost by a combined 12 points. Something's got to give you. Do you trust them going home and getting this done today?
It's tough for Memphis. My numbers have called for them a lot this year, and I just haven't had the guts to play them. They've been so inconsistent. You talked about the game last week against Tulsa. Outgained them by 197 yards, 14 more first downs. They had 99 plays last week against Tulsa. Problem was they turned the ball over way too many times, 3. In fact, you go back all season long. In every FBS game Memphis has played, they've yet to have a turnover advantage, and that's the problem you have. When you bet on a team that turns the ball over a lot, your variance is very high. Now, I know they opened 8.5, now we're seeing like 10.5. I could see money coming on Memphis, but at this number, I couldn't do it. Navy's a team that's getting a little bit better. They beat Central Florida a couple weeks ago, actually, in that game against Central Florida, 34-30. I looked pretty good in that game. I gained them by 80 yards, but that's the only game that Navy has won the yardage battle all season long. Team in Navy, they did have that break between Air Force and Houston, so they did have the bye. A concern for me with Memphis is they've had a lot of games in which, since they play so fast, the last games that they played defensively against Arkansas State, their defense was on the field for 98 plays, 83, 92, 83. So that's a concern, especially when you take a look at the situation with the Tigers. They haven't had a bye yet. So they go from going on the road to Temple and Tulsa. Now they have Navy, and then they have Central Florida going on the bye or going on the road again next week. So the following week after that. So it's a situation for me that I have some concerns about this Memphis defense being on the field a lot, and Navy's a team that can move the football a little bit. Not as much as they had in the past, but still, it's a team that's a little bit better. So I just can't back a Memphis team as a double-digit favorite here in this situation. Just don't take care of the ball well enough for me. I understand money coming in on them, but it's not my money. I'm passing on this one.
Yeah, the Memphis kicker would make a great NFL kicker, Dave, because he kicks just like him. Missed 3 field goals and an extra point. It was so bad. But do you like him to bounce back at home in this spot?
No. I was on Memphis in the game against Tulsa, and I know I had the right side. That's clear as day. Had the right side in the game, but they gave it away. The turnovers were bad. The kicker couldn't kick. And maybe this is to the coaching. They went up 13-7 late first half. Less than a minute to play. They allowed a 75-yard drive in 26 seconds by Tulsa because the coach decided, I'll go in a soft zone. I mean, your defense is playing really well because they'd had a good first half. Why do you go into that prevent? It's a prevent defense. It's just when I see coaches do that, I literally want to go fly to wherever they are and throw an object in their face because it's just stupid. And they never recovered from that because Tulsa came out flying in the second half. Memphis made a couple of runs at him, but they couldn't stop Tulsa in the second half. And I wonder what's left in the emotional tank for Memphis now, because now they've lost 3 straight. This is their longest losing streak in several years. It's a program that's going in the wrong direction right now, quite frankly. Navy is not an opponent that I believe is going to inspire anything in Memphis. I would suggest, I'm not there, but I would suggest the home field advantage because the program is going in the wrong direction right now. Probably not what it normally might be for a Thursday night home game. Navy gets represented pretty well wherever they go. So I really didn't give Memphis much of a home field advantage here. And I don't know how excited they're going to be to face kind of a mediocre Navy team. On the numbers, I can see why the money's coming in on Memphis. But like Bryan, I can't support this team. I don't want Navy here because they're just not very good. And if Memphis does get out in front, they could alleviate some frustration against this team. But I can't trust them to do it.
Yeah, it's a tough spot here, Tony Mejia. It's a tough spot to trust Memphis. I mean, after the first 3 weeks, Navy was averaging 10 points a game, but they figured something out here over the last couple of weeks. They've scored, 24 and 34 against SMU and UCF. So do you trust Navy's offense to keep it competitive?
I do trust Navy's offense. It sounds like you and Cokin didn't appreciate losing a game where you outgained the team 6-14 to 4-17. I can attest to your disappointment there. Look, what we've seen out of Navy is, they fired their offensive coordinator. The AD got heated after they couldn't move the ball at all against Air Force. Said, we're going to fire this OC, and Niumatalolo said, no, I mean, he's my guy, Ivan Jasper. He's been there for over a decade. So we're just going to reassign him. And then the offense has actually picked up without him. So, say what you will about that. Navy comes off a game that they have to be disappointed in because they were up 21-7 on SMU, currently undefeated. Then you give up a 95-yard kickoff return and score just 3 points in the second half. SMU comes back and beats you. They beat UCF based on the fact that Mikey Keene was making his first career start on the road. I actually played pretty well in that game. UCF moved the football without Dylan Gabriel and without their star wide receiver and without their star running back, problems that continue and will keep them from probably being competitive against Cincinnati this weekend. But Navy was able to respond, and really that was their best offensive game of the season. And that's where my lean is on this. I like the over here. Just check the weather because there's potentially storms in the Tennessee area for this game. But you see that Memphis can move the football. Their defense is terrible. I concur with Dave in terms of Ryan Silverfield. I think the verdict's out on him. He's basically failing with Mike Norvell's players' first 3-game losing streak there since 2015. And I don't trust laying 10.5 points. It's opened 8.5, so the sharp money is on Memphis. But I just think we see points. This is a short week situation for the Memphis defense dealing with the triple option. Triple option's got it going. They're actually breaking some big plays in the passing game. And the true freshman for Memphis, Seth Hennigan, has lived up to billing. He's made some mistakes, particularly on the road, but he threw for 463 yards last week. Certainly wasn't on him that they lost that game. Calvin Austin, the third, one of the top wide receivers in the country, had 200 yards of receiving last week. And Navy's had issues with high octane passing attacks, and I think that's where I think Memphis can make inroads here. SMU was able to gash Navy in the second half. UCF, with a true freshman quarterback making his first start on the road, was able to make plays, and Marshall in game 1. So I think Memphis is able to move the football at home, gives up some big plays, and we see the over come in, and the number's manageable, 55. So just check the weather. I like the high side.
All right, leaning towards the high side there. We'll move on for a Friday night game, too, which should be interesting. What do we got, Robert? Clemson traveling to Syracuse to take on the Orangemen. 13.5. Clemson opens up 45.5 for a total in this one. Now, Clemson has an extra week here to prepare for this game, Dave. I don't know that that's going to solve their offensive issues to this point, but Syracuse, pretty feisty team this year with Dino Babers. Do you like their chances of keeping this one close?
Yeah, Dino might be saving his job because I think the verdict was clear that this was a season where they had to show some improvement. They have. It hasn't really shown up in a great record or anything like that, but there's no question Syracuse is playing better football than they have the last couple of years. There's been some changes that Babers made in his approach. They're not playing at a super fast pace anymore. And they're doing a couple of things well. They've been running the football pretty well. I'm not sure they'll have much success in that area here, but Clemson hasn't been as tough against the run as maybe we expected. And Syracuse is defending the run quite well. They've got a better than 2-to-1 ratio on rushing yards for and rushing yards against. Now, it's not against the greatest schedule of all time. Syracuse has played a pretty pedestrian schedule. Clemson's played a lot better talent. There's no question about that. And if you look at the man-for-man matchup, Clemson's better at almost every position. But the problem with the Tigers is they're just not playing for a lot. And this is something brand new for Clemson. None of the players of this team have experienced this. I don't know that anybody in the coaching staff has experienced this. It's not that the games are meaningless, but Clemson's out of it as far as anything big is concerned. They're not going to be back in the college football playoff this year. And they're kind of playing like a team that doesn't have as much to play for as they usually do. I can tell you this, they're going to be fired up at the Carrier Dome on Friday night. This is a really big game for Syracuse. A win here would be absolutely huge for them. And I think they've got the wherewithal to compete in this game. Power rate's about right on the number, but I think the situation, even with Clemson having extra time to prep for this game, I think the situation actually does favor the Orange, and I like Syracuse plus the points in this game.
All right, taking the points. It does seem, Tony Mejia, if you think this is going to be somewhat competitive, it's a lot of points for a team at home that's playing certainly the kind of defense they've been playing, top 25 in overall defense. And like Dave said, they can run the ball here. So what do you think we're going to see from Syracuse here?
Yeah, props to Dino Babers. He looked at the strength of his football team and said, I've got to go with horses up front and Sean Tucker, who's a real deal at running back. And now they've even gone off of Tommy DeVito, who's more of a passer, and gone to Garrett Schrader, the Mississippi State transfer, who's more of a runner. So you can tell what Syracuse is going to want to do in this game to stay in it and potentially steal it. And it's the same thing they did against Liberty and Malik Willis, who's ascended to being the #1 quarterback in this year's draft class, and they beat him at home. It's play keep away football, try to run the ball down Clemson's throat, which sounds strange, and utilize their defense. Now the problem with that is they have some real issues on the offensive line. One of their best tackles was seen limping. We'll see if he plays. That's going to be my tell on whether I want to touch this game or not. Matthew Bergeron, he was seen limping, and their center left that game against Wake Forest with a leg injury. Their guard was scratched, and yet they were able to run for 354 yards against Wake Forest, which tells you that their identity is pretty clearly carved out. Clemson comes off of a bye, so at least they're fresher. But Dabo Swinney said we couldn't even practice the first week. We just took mental reps because we were so banged up. And certainly you need to see improvement out of that offense coming off of a bye, considering that their offensive line really let everybody down, and their quarterback struggled as a result. So to me, the signs point to under here. I have no interest in taking points with Syracuse because I don't trust them yet, especially with O-line issues, and I have no interest in laying with Clemson on the road. Nearly 2 touchdowns, or now I guess it is 2 touchdowns. So under or nothing for me. And again, if Syracuse has its offensive line intact, or at least Bergeron in play, I do like their ability to hang around in this game, keep this close and low scoring.
So if it's a question of trust there, Bryan, Leonard, I mean, 0-6 against the number, that's what Clemson is in their last 6 games. Meanwhile, Syracuse may be a little undervalued. They're 4-0 now against the number. So how do you have this pegged here, this game?
Yeah, I'm with Dave here. I think Syracuse has some value here. Circa has it 14.5. It's painted 14 across the board. Syracuse does a really good job of telling you where they think the line is going to go. So if you do like the Syracuse, no need to play it now at 14 because we're probably going to catch that 14.5. And I'm with Dave. I like the Syracuse side here. Keep in mind, over the years, as good as Clemson has been, Syracuse has always been a pain in the ass for the Clemson Tigers. They've been able to stay in a lot of games. Talent didn't show it, but they were able to play them very well. So even though Clemson is off the bye, I like the way Syracuse has approached these games against Clemson, and I think they're a live dog here. Tell you the kind of season Clemson's having. Last week, offensively, they have 6.4 yards per play. That's 2 yards per play better than they did against any other FBS team. They were also +3 in turnovers, and yet they only scored 19 points against Boston College. This offense right now for Clemson, it's hard to believe how bad they are. It really is. For all the quality players they have and what they've done in the past, something is clearly wrong for the offense here in Clemson. Will they turn it around in 1 week? We will have to see, but it's telling that they're not covering the spread in these games, and they're not covering them even close. In FBS competition, -10 against the spread, -21.5, -16, -9. They're still overrated in my eye. I like the Syracuse side here. You got a team of Syracuse that is off that overtime game against Wake Forest, and they have not had their bye yet. So that is a little bit of a discount on the Syracuse side here. But this is probably the biggest game for Syracuse just about every year, just the way they played against Clemson. They really get up to play the Tigers here. Last week they lose that game in overtime to Wake Forest 40-37, but they had 88 more yards. They had 12 more first downs. They were the better team. And the defense is fresh. The last 4 weeks they've only given up 54, 62, 69, 69 plays. So the defense will be fresh here, as fresh as you can be without a bye. I think Syracuse could surprise Clemson here. I'll take the +14 that I think we're going to get. And it would not surprise me if they give them a really good game and this goes down to the wire in a low-scoring game. And keep in mind, Ralph Michaels puts these charts out over at WagerTalk every week. He breaks down the first quarter and the first half. Clemson on the season has allowed 10 points in the first quarter. On the season for Syracuse against FBS competition, they've only allowed 6 points. So this could be a real slugfest here in the first period, maybe an underplay in the first period, or Syracuse plus the points in the first period. But I think Syracuse gets a cover here. That's my best bet on today's show.
Oh, all right. Liking Syracuse here in that one Friday night. We do have one more game, a little late night Friday night for those of us on the East Coast. Hit it, Robert. What do we got? Oh, Cal taking on Oregon at a 10:30 Eastern time kickoff. Opens up as Oregon a little more than a 2-touchdown favorite, 55.5. And it's been, well, they had a full week to rest up and try and get past that Stanford loss there, Dave. But not without consequences. I think they lost their Verdell. Their running back is gone. They've got some issues on the defensive side of the ball. Do you like Oregon maybe in a bounce-back situation to take care of business?
Well, I mean, the problem is that Oregon is now basically playing for scraps. They're not going to be in the playoff. They're out. Nobody from the Pac-12 is going to make it. The only team that I think would have even a prayer is Arizona State if they win out and things break right. And it looks right now like Arizona State is the best team in that league. That said, Arizona State could very well lose this week as they go on the road because they're just cannibalizing one another in the Pac-12. So Arizona State now runs into Utah, with Utah finally off a really good game. Who knows what's going to happen in that game? And this game, look, Oregon's clearly the better football team. There isn't any question about that. But I wonder about their mindset. And sometimes that week off, it can be really helpful to a team if they're coming off a good performance. You can relax for a couple of days. You can't wait to get back into practice. Everything's going well. And the week off can be a really nice thing. For teams that are coming off losses and potentially deflating losses, I don't think it's a good thing. To me, it's one of those situations where they could be hanging their heads and just moping because the game just doesn't mean a whole lot at this point. And those are spots where I tend to look at the underdog. I don't know if California can stay with them for 4 quarters. That's probably the difficult thing here. I mean, the game still power rates, probably in the area right around, I think actually a little higher than the number is. I think the value in terms of the power rating in statistics probably still favors Oregon, but I don't like the situation for them. So it's one where there's no chance I'm going to lay the points with Oregon. And unfortunately, I just don't trust California enough to think they can actually stay in the game for 4 quarters. If Oregon does get going offensively, they could turn this into a laugher. So I don't know what to do with it. If I had to bet the game, who knows? Might be a Friday night shootout in the Pac-12. Maybe take a shot with the over.
Oh, all right, like that there. And listen, Tony Mejia, you notice I'm going to need some help here with the pronunciation, but they're very good NFL quality defensive player there for Oregon. I believe wasn't he tossed out for a targeting hit in Stanford? So I don't think he's going to be available. But Cal upended Oregon last year, didn't they, with the same quarterback under center for Cal? So what kind of shot do you give him to pull it off 2 years in a row?
Yeah, I'm not a Chase Garbers fan at all. Kayvon Thibodeau out for the first half due to a targeting injury. So if you're of the belief that the Ducks are going to have a hangover coming off the bye after the demoralizing loss where I think their win probability with like 2 minutes to go was 99%, then you might want to take a shot at the first half with Cal. That's my slight lean there, and I probably won't touch that. I also have a nice lean on the under in this game with but Thibodeau being out, if Cal gets off to a decent start, that kind of blows that up. But I mean, I don't like backing the over with the fact that Cal has one of the better edge rushers themselves in the Pac-12 and Cameron Good, and I don't trust Anthony Brown to really move that football. They're also going to be relying on young backs. The 2 guys that are going to back up Travis Dye have combined for 9 carries throughout their careers. And Cristobal said he's going to mix stuff up with them to get their feet wet. He also, and he would know because he's an offensive line coach at heart, says his offensive line is improving, but, quote, has miles and miles to go. That screams under to me as well. It screams a game that they expect to win on the defensive end and hope the offense doesn't make mistakes. The other issue with Oregon is they lose their top safety, Bennett Williams. He broke his leg in a walkthrough. So that's a cursed team right now. Probably a game they'll stay away from. But Cal, they've dropped tight games to TCU, Nevada, lost in overtime to Washington, scored 6 points against Washington State. And their quarterback just does nothing for me. I think if he was halfway decent, they'd have won most of those games. So under or pass for me, first half, Cal. If you give me 8, I guess, potential lean, but probably a game I'll stay away from.
They haven't won a conference game, Cal, Bryce, since that upending of Oregon last year. But that was at Berkeley. Different ball game here. How much faith do you have in them to do it 2 years in a row?
Yeah, they're winless in FBS competition this year so far. And Tony brought up at the one point that Oregon had that game pretty much locked up. The post-game win percentage was still Oregon 63%. So they would have won just 2 out of 3 times basically against Stanford last week. I don't know if I buy into Dave's thought process that since they've lost, the season's over. How many times does a Pac-12 team make it to the Final Four? Not very often. It's not like Ohio State or an Alabama or one of those teams losing. So I don't know. Sure, that's their goal. They want to play for the national championship, but they're 1-1 in the Pac-12. They can still win the Pac-12. So I don't know if that's such a dire loss last week to Stanford. Both teams off of a bye. What concerns me from Oregon's standpoint is on the season, they're plus 14 in turnovers, but yet they're 2-2-1 against the spread. That tells me they're an overrated squad. Everything's going right for them in the turnover standpoint, and they still can't win by numbers. The only game they really dominated against the spread was the Ohio State game. And you could take a look at that 2 different ways. Ohio State played terrible in that game, and they looked terrible the first couple of weeks. Now Ohio State's back to where we thought they were going to be. So do we think Oregon beat Ohio State? They just weren't playing well there. If they beat Ohio State, like say that just happened last week, now that would be more impressive. So don't want to lay the points here with Oregon. Don't trust this Cal team. This is a game I'll be sitting out on, and we'll have to learn a little bit. But I don't discount Oregon because they're still alive in the Pac-12, and really that's more of a realistic goal.
All right, there you go. 10:30 Friday night, guys. Those are the 4 games here that we broke down for you. Just a quick reminder, best bets up and ready to rock and roll for all 3 of these gentlemen right now at WagerTalk.com. Also, while you're there, make sure you check out at WagerTalk.com the live odds page. Keep up to date. See when the lines are moving. Some great information on that board, guys, across all sports. So head over to WagerTalk.com. Visit Tony Mejia, Dave Cokin, and Bryan Leonard. And don't forget, of course, best bets already locked and loaded up there today. All right, so of the 4 here, let's just do a quick rundown here. And Tony Mejia, I'll start with you. Of these 4, was there one that you're leaning towards a little bit more than the others?
There absolutely is. And a look at the wonderful Wager Talk live odds screen tells you that over 93% of the tickets are on the over in Navy Memphis and 100% on the money line. And the line, the total skyrocketed from 52.5 to 55. But I haven't touched it yet, even though I love the over. I wrote the Gold Sheet preview for it and it immediately stood out. And then I use AccuWeather as a handicapping tool, especially when I'm playing totals. And it's a 59% chance of rain. So that means that on Thursday morning, I will wake up and see what the deal is that night, because you really can't tell a couple days going out from it. But if everything looks at least decent, like it's not going to be a torrential downpour, I really like the over in this game. Like I mentioned earlier, it's been a free-for-all for Memphis offensively and defensively. There's been 59 points scored in all 6 of their games. Navy's surrendering over 32 points per game. They're going to struggle to stop Austin and the high-powered passing attack. And the only thing that concerns me is Navy monopolizing the football and then not being able to punch it in, which is, they have been known to do that. But against this Memphis defense, I'm willing to take my chances. Give me the over.
Yeah, well, listen, they scored a ton of points against UCF and SMU, so why not there? Keep an eye on the weather there, guys, for that game. And Bryan, talk to us. Which one of these games are you leaning towards a little bit?
Talked about Clemson, Syracuse. Clemson would be my better play here. In fact, that's one of my plays I gave my clients for the week. And as we were speaking, somebody took out that 14.5 circa, so now it's 14 a circa. But I prefer the Syracuse side here. We've just talked about it, so I won't add anything to it. But I do want to point out that today's the first day of hockey season. Last year at Wager Talk, number 1 hockey handicapper and profit, Dave Cokin. Number 2, myself. I've handicapped hockey ever since Vegas got a team, and this is my 5th year, and I've had 4 winning years. I've got to play up on tonight's games. I got a total up, and I got to play up for tomorrow. And I know Dave had his 5% play on his season situation. So go up to the site right now, grab those. The first week of the hockey season, all plays every day will be only $9. So check us out. It's a great deal right now, and best of luck to everybody out there this hockey season.
Yeah, and you're just looking to go see the Kraken tonight, aren't you? I know
The
you are,
Kraken.
right down the road from you. The Kraken are in town there in Las Vegas, and two of the absolute most profitable guys in the NHL, Dave Cokin and Bryan Leonard. So make sure you head over to WagerTalk.com. And Dave, which one of these four games here today are you leaning towards a little bit more than any others?
I should mention the first bet I ever made was on a hockey game, American Hockey League game in my hometown of Providence, the Rhode Island Reds, minus a goal and a half at home against the Quebec Aces. Ooh. And they lost 5-3. So I lost $5 on the game. I was 8 years old, which at $5 when you're 8 years old is a lot of money. That meant no baseball cards for me for a couple of weeks. And interestingly enough, even at 8 years old, it dawned on me that you shouldn't bet just because you're rooting for a team. Because the Reds sucked, okay? They were a terrible hockey team. They did. They were horrible. Yep. And I was betting with my heart. I don't think I ever did that again. But hockey was actually the first sport I got involved betting on a fairly regular basis. I really followed it very closely, despite the fact that they were horrible numbers. Back then, it was, for those who aren't unfamiliar, it's gotten better. Hockey's a lot more beatable now than it used to be. It used to be where there was no money line, okay? It was 1.5 in most cases. And what that meant was you could take a goal with the underdog or lay a goal and a half with the favorite. And that's one of the reasons that I wanted to be a bookmaker rather than a bettor for many years, because I got to tell you something, that you can't get a bigger edge than that. And yet people bet it like crazy anyway. And they laid 6-5 on top of that. Anyway, as far as the show goes, I don't know if I'm going to use this game or not. I do like Syracuse in the game against Clemson, plus the points. But I'm a little concerned with the scheduling dynamics, and at this time of year, you do have to factor those in. And even though it's not going well for Clemson, they've had an extra week to prep for this. And Syracuse is off a wild game last week, which they lost. I don't think they're going to be depressed over it, because this is a really big game for them. National TV at home against a really big-name opponent. They want this game. But that's still kind of a tough one for them to swallow, losing the way they did to Wake Forest last week. And I think there were points in that game where it appeared that Syracuse was going to absolutely win the game, and they didn't. So it's not an ideal situation. Nevertheless, I do like Syracuse plus the points to at least some extent, so I'll use it for the best bet here in the show. Quick NHL note, I do have my first play of the season tomorrow, and Bryan happens to be on the same side. We exchange emails, and we have this game in common. I think we have the same feelings on this team, so get it from either one of us. I think it's got a really good chance to win. And again, I mentioned that all NHL selections across the board at WagerTalk for this first week of the season are only $9. Yep. So it's a bargain. Take advantage.
Yep, absolutely. And then it'll begin same deal next week as the NBA rolls around. So a lot going on at WagerTalk.com. But between, you got a couple of baseball games tonight. You have App State and the Raging Cajuns we talked about. You've got NHL. A lot of reasons, a lot of ways to make it profitable, guys, by heading over to WagerTalk.com. Make sure you visit Tony Mejia, visit Bryan Leonard. He's locked and loaded in the NHL, and Dave is ready to go this week, guys. So visit all three of these gentlemen over at WagerTalk.com. Make sure you hit that bell in the upper right-hand corner. Get notified when we go live here. And there's a quick recap, guys, of where they're leaning right now. Syracuse, seeing a theme. And the over 55, but keep an eye on the weather for that game against Navy in Memphis here. But, guys, best of luck with your plays, no matter which way you go. Just come back and join us again tomorrow as we do it all over again. College football, week 7. We've got you covered here on College Football Daily. Good luck, guys. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Sign up for the free WagerTalk Text Club to gain access to free plays and exclusive discounts. Just text WagerTalk to 33222 to sign up and get a $10 coupon to use on WagerTalk.com.